made by a man he thought he was his friend.
Waar encore une bouteille de vin. Donne-moi encore une bouteille de vin.
Here's to you, Mondego. Being your friend is always an adventure.
And what an adventure it was. Jim Caviezel plays the title role in this latest big screen version, which opens in theaters today. Jim, good morning.
Good morning,
Great to see you here.
Great to see you too.
This is based on the classic tale by Alexandre Dumas, and it's a role it would seem to me that any actor would covet because of the transformation that this character goes through. He's a guileless, he begins as an innocent, guileless sailor.
Yes, he's represents innocence in all of us, and who has faith. It's tested by injustice. He loses his faith and becomes obsessed with revenge.
Revenge against the character we just saw played by Guy Pearce, who
That's
was
correct.
his best friend. And so this character, Edmond Dantes, ends up in prison, and it's a terrible circumstance. He's an innocent man. He's beaten every year. And his only hope is the character we see before him, who is Richard Harris, a fellow prisoner.
That's right. And in this scene, he's trying to, or during this time in the prison, he's trying to teach him that freedom doesn't just come from walking around, it comes from within. That freedom can arbitrarily be taken from you solely based on the physical. And when you see Edmond Dantes escaping from prison, he still doesn't know freedom because he's possessed by forces outside of himself.
By anger and revenge and just fury at what had happened to him.
But the revenge part, you know, just so that it doesn't scare away our lady audience here, it's got a backdrop of romance. It's on a scale of Gone with the Wind.
And spirituality. It's interesting to me how often this movie talks about God. It is what the lesson from the Richard Harris character really ultimately is about. It's what ultimately pulls Edmond Dantes out. This was important to you to get this right.
Right.
Why?
Well, I think it's important to be honest with it. We all have something in us that kind of drives us in certain directions, and we also have the dark side that pulls us in the wrong direction. I think films like Star Wars inevitably do well, and Lord of the Rings and this film, because it ties into that part in human nature, and I think all levels of people are going to come away with something.
You in fact think that when we don't talk about this topic of spirituality, we kind of deny people an opportunity. We hurt them in some way.
I think it's important to be sensitive to the fact that people, you know, God gives us all a chance to come around in our own time. And in the Count of Monte Cristo, this gentle hand continually weighs on this man. Even though he believes that the sword will give him justice, it inevitably will be God.
We see him transform into the Count and rise up. It's an amazing transformation. I mean, and this idea of transformation seems to be indicative of your work in general. I mean, if you take a look at the character you played in Pay It Forward, a drug addict who's trying to come up out of that frequency, the found son, you seem to seek, or does luck bring you to them, these roles of transformation?
I just look for a great material, and this happened to be the best material at the time. I wasn't interested in doing the Count of Monte Cristo. In fact, I never thought I'd ever play the Count of Monte Cristo.
I mean, it's a huge role.
And but the transformation, I said to Kevin, I said, it's got to be more than just a physical thing. It's just not about the cape and growing a goatee. That it had to be something within. He may think it's from the outside in, but he's changing from the inside out.
So in many ways, it's about overcoming suffering, isn't it?
It's redemptive suffering, yeah.
That's a theme in this movie, and with you, to some degree.
Yes, but it also, the scope, the romantic feeling and the color of that, I think people are going to continually come away with something different each time they see it.
It is a very romantic movie, and you're very good in it.
Well,
congratulations on how well your life seems to be going.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Of course, a pleasure. All right, The Count of Monte Cristo, as I mentioned, opens today, and we're back with much more. But first, these messages.